Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to a response to something DM Bloodworth said. I want to say it was last week. He and Bear were talking about old school gaming and what it means, and if games in the future can or will be considered old school by virtue of the number of years that have gone by. And it struck me as I don't think that's how it really works. Most of the hobby that we're all involved in, role-playing games, even wargaming, board gaming not so much, because Battleship and things like Monopoly and Life and all those games, they really haven't changed much, and people's approach to playing them I don't think has changed. But at first I was thinking, old school gaming is kind of more about a feeling and the way people played and the way games were designed with rules, mechanics, and things like that. And it got me to thinking about, believe it or not, the Great Depression, and how people lived and did things back then. And that got me into thinking about this topic in regards to Dungeons & Dragons. Came out like 72, I want to say. If my numbers are off by a year or two, sue me. Since then, we have gone through Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, and soon Gen Alpha and Beta will be gamers. And since Gen X, or maybe even before then, because Gary and his friends were wargaming before then, I assume, and things like that. Within those generations, there's been drastic cultural and as well as biological or physiological changes that have happened within our species, not just humanity, but gamers, where during Gen X, when we were playing, the whole world was vastly different than it is now. Not just, I'm old and things were better, but the way people approached everything has changed. This was before the advent of the computers, the video games, cell phones, the internet, all these other things, and a myriad of other things that have changed amongst us as people, and especially as gamers. I don't think that 5e and games going forward, or even going back a little ways, are ever really going to be truly fit, or will truly fit the old school idea, because they weren't, not only were they not created then, but they weren't created to fit niches and desires and wants of gamers that going forward they're going to try and fill. Going forward, all role-playing games and war games too will have to constantly compete with not just the internet and computer gaming, but a change in why people play games and how people play games, and who's playing them, as well as, more importantly, which is what I really wanted to get to, is how and why games are written and how they will be played going forward. I could probably go on for hours and hours about the differences between the beginning gamers in role-playing to now. There are a lot of similarities, of course. The whole idea and desire to role-play and to be in role-playing or adventure games or things like that. But all the other aspects and facets of our lives, compared to then and now and going forward, are three separate things. And I think for game designers and people who want to play old school games, it's never going to be a perfect fit. People today, let's say millennials and Gen Z, are never ever going to be able to get what we got playing back in the 70s and 80s. It's just never going to happen. They'll get close, but there's always going to be a whole lot of things that are different and missing from their experience. Even us now, us Gen Xers, who try and go back and play old school games, original games from the first eras of gaming. We still can't get that because we've gone through all these generations and all these changes. I'm almost 60, and when I started playing, I was 12, and I have changed, 40 plus years worth of experience and life and changes and desires. What I wanted back then is very different from what I want now and what I'm capable of attaining, trying to relive those old school experiences. I think we're going to all have to take a step back and look at why we game, what we expect from a game, and be open and honest with everybody we game with. When we come to a table, your session zero, be very honest about what it is you're looking for and what you're hoping to get, and who you are as a gamer or as just a person. We're a lot of us are chasing those bygone days that we're never going to get. And I know, me personally, what I want from any given table is completely different from what I wanted back then. Back then, even if I go into what I was like 10 years after I started gaming, excuse me, I was a very different person. My goals and desires at the gaming table were colored by my new life experiences from the time I started playing to, like I said, when I was in college. I was a different person. I was playing different games, and I was looking and hoping for different experiences because in the first 10 years, I had done a lot of these things. And I think that's part of why we're always, or at least most of us that I rub elbows with, are looking for new games and new experiences because we've done a whole bunch of the things that we did in the old school era. And we're looking for things that are not that. Or if we are, we're hoping that a game that came out in the 2000s or the 2010s will scratch certain itches. And if you're looking for those things to happen from a game that was written in the 20s, the 2010s, even the 2020s, to try and give you all that you're looking for from a game that was written in 1979, 1985, that sort of thing is really kind of, I really don't think it's possible, unless the writer specifically is trying to hit all those and check all those boxes that the writers in the 70s and 80s were trying to check. So next time you think of old school revival or Renaissance or things like that, I think you might want to rethink those labels and those titles and where you fit in going forward and what it is you really are trying to accomplish at the table. And I know me, when I run new games coming up in this year and the next, I'm going to be very honest about what I want as a DM and what I expect from players and what I hope players are also looking for, because that's what I'm going to cater to. That's what I'm going to try and provide as a DM. And as a player going forward, I'm also going to say, this is what I'm looking for. I want this. I don't want that. Is this going to be a good fit? And as GMs and players out there, I hope you guys will also be equally honest in what you're offering, what you're providing, and what you're going to do at the table as DM or player, so that we have fewer games that fall apart after 6-8 sessions, people leaving because they're not getting what they're looking for, people not getting along because it's a mixed match table of 7 different kinds of players. I wish there was an aptitude test or a player test, GM test, so we could fill it out and find out where we fall on the spectrum. Maybe someone will come up with that. Maybe one of you psychology majors will write that up and come up with a semi-accurate test to see where we fall in the different categories along that spectrum when it comes to what kind of gamer we are, what kind of GM we are. But I know that's also another one of those fallacies, because we change. Sometimes we change every day. Sometimes we change every year. Sometimes we go back and forth between a couple of different things. But I know for me, going forward, I'm going to be as honest as possible, maybe even brutally so, in what I am hoping to find from a table, so that I can find more tables that fit and more players that fit. and more experiences that scratch all those itches that I personally am looking for, and the experiences that I'm hoping for at the table. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'll be back in 45 minutes. Maybe we'll talk about this. Maybe we'll talk about something completely different. We never know what's going to happen on second breakfast, but rest assured, a good time will be had by all. Thanks, guys. Love you. I will see you guys down the road. Until then, happy trails.